Hello and welcome back to Seaside Garage and the 2CV project. As I showed you in the previous video, this is my new project. I am not planning on finishing it off right now because winter is coming and there's no reason to use this 2CV right now. I'm gonna wait until the spring to finish up all the stuff. But it doesn't run at the moment and it doesn't break. That means that I can't put it in my storage facility because I need it to be able to move by itself. Therefore, I want to do what's necessary today, hopefully, to start it up and drive it out of here. I don't think it's going to be a massive task, but there is just a lot of fittings that is not fitted. The wiring is not fitted, the battery tray is not fitted, the fuel line is not connected to anything, the brakes are completely empty of fluid. But I think it's going to be fairly simple to just get it to go. So let's try that. And the first thing I need to do is to fit the prop that holds the bonnet open, because that is in the rear of the car. Right here. And that is also painted. Everything is so nice on this car. This is actually going to be a bit of a will it run video, because I don't even know if it's a runner. I suspect it to be. But as mentioned, this engine has been apart and all the gaskets has been renewed. Nothing, as far as I know, has been changed in the engine. It's just been repacked, so to speak. So I don't expect it to be a big struggle to get it to work, but I don't know if the timing is set up right and all that. So we're just gonna have to see. I really hope it's a healthy running engine. The first thing I want to do is to remove the cover for the fan, because that way I can spin the engine over. I would like to spin it over before trying to start it with using the starter, just to make sure that nothing is obstructing it or something like that. And also, that's one of the problems when you get a project that is not finished but worked on. You never know what bolts has been tightened and which one hasn't. So I don't know if the main bolt in here is tightened, for instance. I can see a bolt like this is not tight. This is not tight. And I don't know how the person working on this car was working, because these two, for instance, are tight. And it's just, especially on an engine, you don't want any bolts to not be tight. So I have to check a lot of stuff. He told me the engine was just repacked, but I can already now see that the oil cooler is brand new. That's nice. All the bolts and fittings in here are also brand new. Let's see if the engine spins. It's in gear. It is spinning. There we go. It's out of gear. Yep. It's spinning around just fine. But I don't even know if there is oil in this engine. There is oil in the engine. I gotta say, it's looking black, so I'm pretty sure this engine has been running with this oil. And I don't know if it has been split down the middle. Maybe it's just the gasket at the sides and all that has been swapped, that has been freshened up. I don't know. But this oil is not new, at least. I think it would be wise to just change the oil. What about the oil filter? Where are you? It's right down there. It looks new, so I think I'm just going to change the oil. So I'm going to use a couple of hours on something very boring, but it's a very typical thing when you get a project car that is unfinished and worked on by someone else, of course. Stuff is not always correct, and it turns out there is some stuff that is wrong. For instance, this, to adjust the light height, is not supposed to come through that hole, because those wires that goes into this hole are actually supposed to go in through that hole, and they are not supposed to come out right here. And there's a lot of cleaning up to do in the wiring. I'm just going to go ahead and do that and then take you back when I'm done, because it's quite time consuming and yeah, it will be a lot easier for me to just do and then take you back when it's when I think it's correct, at least. So I have cleaned up the wiring somewhat and installed the battery tray with a couple of bolts. I am not doing this correctly right now. I'm just interested in starting up the engine and moving the car to the storage, because I want to do this proper. next year when the spring is here again. I am considering to actually buy a new wiring harness because everything else is so nice. But let's see about that. But I'm just interested in making it able to crank and make sparks. I'm not interested in making the charge system and all that work. So a lot of stuff will be disconnected. But I think I am at a point where I can try to put in the battery and see what happens. I'm just going to touch. Nothing is on fire, that's a good thing. So I'm going to test if the starter engine can turn the engine over. There is no fuel, there is no spark because that is not even connected yet, but I just want to see if it will spin the engine over. Oh yeah. That's a good beginning. Next up, I need to figure out if it can spark. I'm just gonna hope that the ignition timing is set correctly. If not, I will have to take this off. But because this is actually fitted correctly, I think they did the timing already. So I'm just gonna connect up the wires. The guy who rebuilt it put these, and he was quite embarrassed about that, but these tape strips, and wrote on them where they were supposed to go, but of course it is impossible to read now. And he was really tired about that. But honestly, it's not a very complicated car, so I don't think it will be too much trouble. But most of this stuff is color-coded anyway, so we'll manage. But this is the reason why you take a million pictures before you take it apart. But yeah, there are two wires coming down from the ignition, from the points on the condenser. One is for the oil pressure, and the other one is for the points. And that goes to the negative terminal. And then there should be a positive one coming from the battery. I just want to check if I found the correct one for the positive signal from the battery when ignition is on. So if this one shows power with the ignition on, I know I found the correct one. This one I don't want to be touching anything. So now the power is on, let's turn the key. Nope, there's not any kind of power on that one. Let's just see if I can find one with power in it. Yep, there we go, it's this one. And you know what? I should have just tried to read the tape because it's clearly saying spole, which is coil. So that goes to the positive on the coil. There we go. Now I can check for spark because it should be sparking when the engine spins now. There is definitely spark. That's good. So now what I want to do is to just change that oil, just for the insurance of knowing that it's clean oil. Wow, that was tight. It is running very, very slowly because the engine is very, very cold and the oil is probably a thicker grade. But it is coming out, and I'm just gonna let it drain for a while and then fill in some fresh, not black oil. And then I can fill in some fresh oil, an oil that will probably be changed before the MOT once again with the new fills and all that. It's just to be sure that it's not running on bad old oil. Who knows how old it is. That should do the trick, and I spilled all over the place. Come on. No need to do that when everything is so nice. Yep, that's fine. Then I can go ahead and connect the spark plug wires to the actual spark plugs in the engine. like that. The next bit, that is the fuel line coming from the tank. It's supposed to be fitted to the pump. It is very hard to reach up there, so I'm going to remove the pump and then put the pipe on, and then put it down through and connect it to the hard line going to the fuel tank. So that is what I'm going to do now. There we go. And then I can feed this through and out. There we go. And then I want to install a filter underneath the car. There we go. It's very moped-like. Everything in here you see will be cleaned up once I do the install proper. But now it should be possible to get fuel from the tank. And what I want to do now is to fill in some fuel. And then I'm going to prime the pump, because a known problem on 2CVs that has been standing a long time is a dry fuel pump membrane, a diaphragm. When that happens, it just won't pump. So I'm going to suck some fuel up also to make sure that it's clean enough to run on. That should be enough to get it to run. So now I want to remove it up at the carburetor. That way the pump will be wet and will probably start working, and also I can make sure that it's not completely rancid fuel that comes out. It looks fine. It is dirty, but that's the canister itself that's dirty. So I can put that back in, and that way we should be able to pump fuel into the carburetor pretty quickly at least. Oh, I'm always getting slightly excited at this point. Now there is no cable or throttle mechanism connected just yet. That needs to be done also, but I can turn on the choke at least from out here. It's almost dinner time, but I think it's time to just see if I can make it fire just a little bit maybe. But for the first few spins nothing will probably happen, because it has to pump fuel into the actual carb. But let's give it a go. Ho 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 ho! I'm just gonna set you up a little different, because I have a feeling that it's time to hear this car run. The exhaust is not really fitted, so it might be a little bit loud. Woohoo! I had a feeling something was wrong, because the coil was heating up even though the car was not in ignition. The ignition coil is seeing power all the time. I need to do something about that, otherwise I can't shut it off. But it's running, sounding fine. It will of course help a bit when I attach the muffler down there, because it's detached currently. Oh, nice. Okay, so the coil is constantly seeing power. No matter what position the key is in, it's getting power for somewhere it's not supposed to. I'm not really sure why. But as you can see, a lot of stuff has been made on this wiring loom. So I don't want to use too much time on that, because I am considering changing the loom. And it's perfectly fine. I can run it. I can just not switch it off using the key. But that's all right for moving it. In case I really need to shut it off, I can just dump the clutch in a high gear. So no big deal there either. Next up, I want to make sure that the brakes are somewhat working, and then I think I can move it. But there's a lot of stuff that needs to be done before that. I also need to connect the pedals and so on, and then we can bleed the brakes. Okay, so I have gotten the accelerator pedal fitted, the brake and the clutch. Everything needs going over next year, don't worry. But it's good enough to be able to move it. Now I want to bleed or fill in some LHM fluid into the brake system and bleed the front calipers. I'm actually not worried about the rear ones because, again, it's just to move it. And it's not a surprise, but everything needs to be checked before I start driving this car for real, because I have found bolts, important bolts, that needs to be tightened up and so on. So everything, it's not going to be a complete restoration because it's already been done, but I need to go through pretty much all the steps just to be sure that everything is fine next year. That's just the way it is when you get a unfinished project. There's a lot of loose ends, of course, and you don't know where the ends are. That's more that's the challenge. The late 2CVs are running on the green blood. The early one is running on .4. It's important to make sure you know what kind of system you have, and this is also another task for next year. I need to check that the components fitted to this is the correct one, because, for instance, if you fit the wrong the rear brake cylinders, they will perish and fail. And I know for a fact that the guy I bought it from wasn't a big Citroen guy, so I need to check it to make sure there's no issues there. Just to be safe, better to be safe than sorry, remember. There's a bleed screw down there on the caliper right there. I'm gonna open that and then just hope that it will start running all by itself. Great thing about LHM is that it's not so hurtful as the .4 is, so it's not a big deal if I spill some of this stuff. And I'm going to, because I'm not taking too much care to pick it up right now. So I'm just going to go ahead and gently press the brakes just to see if the fluid comes out. Can you see it still? Yeah. There we go, it's out. That means that one of the brake circuits are going to work, and it's the front, which are discs. I don't really need the rear ones, so I'm not gonna do anything about those right now. So the car's back together. I'm just gonna push it back and remove the lift so I can drive it out of here if everything works. I also need to fit the side cover. Unfortunately, I did scratch this. I'm actually unsure whether I did this or it was already there. I'm pretty sure I did it. But there is scratches other places also. So I just am going to have to fix that. It's no big surprise being me. But another thing that I really noticed is that this paint is a little bit... it does want to flake off quite easily. So it's a bit... yeah, it is what it is, but I need to do some fixing right there. And be a little bit more careful, of course. So this is it. Everything is back together. The lift is moved. And I hope to just jump in and drive it out of here. So it is in the storage, and I just had to take a little while to calm my nerves because something happened. I forgot to install the spring for the throttle. That meant when I just gave it a little bit of throttle, it didn't really want to come back. So it was giving a lot more throttle than I thought in first gear. The next thing was that the clutch was... I was able to make it disengage to get it into first, but when I tried to press the clutch again, it wouldn't disengage the clutch. So I had, I pretty much accelerated as fast as possible in a 2CV without the ability to do much about it. I could brake, but before I knew that, it already happened, as you can see in the video. I did try to steer quite rapidly, and that was because of this. I hit the wall. Oh, and this is why I don't have nice stuff. I'm just terrible at it. Every time I have something that looks nice, something like this happens. It doesn't really happen on all the scrappy parts, but I don't think I'm very good at taking care. Anyway, luckily, it is only the paint, which is amazing. I don't see any dents. The other thing is, it's the same panel that I just scratched before. So what I'm going to do next year is to just do a complete respray of this front wing. You can also see it got some runners that are not very nice. So yeah, it's just going to be some more paint training. That's just how it is. But anyway, thank you for watching. It is in the storage facility now, and I will continue on this in the spring. It could be nice to have some month driving around in the 2CV. I'm actually not even sure I'm going to sell this one because I love 2CVs. So thank you for watching. Don't forget you can support me on Patreon and help me buy some paint for that front wing. And see you in the next one.